Hey everybody, these are Rollei 35 cameras, and they're just fun little cameras. These are, I consider this one of the most beautiful 35mm cameras made. They suffer from one common problem, and that is the shutter mechanism is sticky on the slow speeds. And I'm going to show you on this particular camera. We're going to take it apart. And I'll show you how to repair that. But let me show you. This one's actually working. I've already repaired this. So we go to the speeds lower than 15 and down. 15 on down. It's handled by a different mechanism. It's a clockwork mechanism. Go to 8. Quarter of a second, half a second. So you hear that spinning inside. That clockwork mechanism is what gets gummed up. And fixing it is fairly easy. It just requires minor surgery on this camera. So let's get to it. These are the tools we're going to use. The most interesting one, of course, is this one right here. And this is a lens spanner. And I got this on Amazon for a little over $11. Just loosen these little guys. You slide it back and forth until these points or these square ends are the distance you need. And we're going to be setting this very close. We're going to use this on things like this and these two screws here. Second thing we're going to need is a pair of needle-nose pliers. We need an appropriately sized little flat blade screwdriver and some cotton buds, otherwise known as Q-tips. In addition, as always, we need some isopropyl alcohol. And for this, we're going to use naphtha, which many people have in the form of lighter fluid. I just bought a big container of it like this. This is the same stuff. It's lighter fluid or naphtha, same thing. Let's start by taking these two screws off the top. On the German-made cameras, these are flat blade screws. And on the Singapore cameras, I believe they are Phillips. Okay, now we need to take the cocking lever off and just make sure you get it. In fact, I don't even really tighten the screws up. I put it in until the points are at the right distance and use it just to break the screw loose, and then it comes off. We also have a small brass washer, which goes right here, and this happened to fall off when I took the screw off. So don't lose this little washer. It's important. There's 3 screws here. All the screws on the Rollei 35 are held in place with thread locker, which is a bit of a tedious thing. These ones were kind of challenging to remove. My other camera, they were very nice and easy to get out. So if you have ones that are being stubborn, rather than messing them up like I did, use a soldering iron tip to warm them up a little bit. But I'm going to remove these screws. Again, I've already been in here, so they're not that difficult to remove. Now we have 2 screws to remove. Just break them loose using the tips of this spanner. There. Notice how the screw on the right is a shoulder screw. There's a little shoulder here. That's the screw that's going to go in the right hole. So make sure you don't mix these up. It's not going to work for the little lever. The screw for the lever does not have a shoulder. Notice it's flat. There's a little washer in here. And this is the single most complicated part of this disassembly. And it's not that hard. There's a little device in here that has a flat on the top side. The flat part is up here at the top. And there's a spring that comes in at the right side and squeezes against it. And the way to remove this part is you have to rotate it clockwise a quarter of a turn until the flat is against the spring. And that's what the pliers are for. So just grip it, turn it quarter turn clockwise, and you can look in there and see that the flat is lined up to the spring. And then wiggle, 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 and it should come right out. And if we look closely at the part, you can see that it's got the flat side. And we look at the hole, and you can see this, the retention spring here, right there, that goes against the flat side. That's it. Just wiggle the top a little and come right off. In my case, the plastic that covers the light meter fell out as well. This used to be glued inside, and I'm not about to put super glue to hold it in place or something because it's just going to get all over and make a mess. When I put this back together, I'm going to set it on here in position and very carefully close everything. So take a look at this device right here, these prongs. That's the button you use to close the camera. Notice how it could actually get rotated out of position. You have to rotate it so that the piece with the prongs is as close to the sidewall as possible. Notice the position. You want these prongs to be parallel to the sidewall and as close to the sidewall as possible. When we close it up, we're going to put this device straight down through where the screwdriver is going. It has to go behind this little bracket here. Now we have to put the cocking lever back on. I'm just going to cheat and put only a couple of these screws in. Put the easy 2 screws in. We'll leave the third one out. There we go. We just need to be able to cock the shutter. So pull the lens out, lock it. One important point while you're working on this camera, make sure you keep downward pressure on this gear right here. This lever plus gear will come straight up. There's nothing holding it in place. And if it does, this gear here, which has a spring wrapped around it, is going to spring free and uncoil itself. And there will be some profanity probably. In order to save yourself some tears, when you get the cocking lever off, put some match marks on these 2 gears, just in case you ever find out that you have to tighten this black gear up against spring tension and get it aligned with the cocking lever gear again. And I actually had that happen on this camera. And when I did it, it was a bit of trial and error. I kept tightening the black gear, putting the cocking lever gear in place, checking to see if I could cock it all the way. And I find out it was not cocked correctly. I would move it over a few teeth. Does it cock correctly? No. Move it over a few teeth. And then maybe I would get it so it was clocked correctly, but then there just wasn't enough spring tension. So it took a while to find just the right spot. So prevent that by not letting this ever pop off. And now grab something, and right here, this little brown silver thing, that's your shutter release. It's a little dished thing. You can see where it is made to receive something pushing down on it. So you push that and it releases the shutter. So now we're going to clean the slow speed shutter mechanism, and it's right here. These gears, this little brass gear right here, and there's a little thing, a little counterweight thing kind of right here that spins around. This is the escapement for the slow shutter speeds. And that's where we're going to concentrate our efforts. Before we do anything else, look for any accumulations of nasty, oily glop or anything like that, and use the isopropyl alcohol to just clean it up. We just want anything that's obvious to be cleaned up. Now we're going to take the naphtha like this, and we're going to get just a little bit of it on our cotton swab. And again, I've already done this camera, so I'm not going to actually apply any, but if you've got the cotton swab wet and you just brush it onto these gears down here where you see me putting the cotton swab, that is going to put enough naphtha on there to start freeing things up. So now we can just release the shutter, cock it, release the shutter, cock it, and do this a few times. Change your shutter speeds. Let's just exercise all the shutter speeds from 1/2 to 1/15. And there we go. And that's probably enough. Just the naphtha in there. Just get a cotton swab and get any remaining naphtha. If you see any pooling anywhere, you don't want much. You just want just the smallest amount, and that loosens up any stuff that's in there. If you really want to, you can get some synthetic clock lubricant, something like that. I have a little bottle of it, and just put the tiniest whisper of a drop in there. But I found on these two cameras that I really didn't need to do that. The naphtha was enough. And naphtha will evaporate, so we're just cleaning up any stuff in there that's thickened. At this point, the camera's ready to reassemble. Let's put it back together. First things first, remove the cocking lever. Being careful not to let that gear come up. If your camera's like mine and has this piece flopping around loose, put it in place now. Now turn this metal piece so that it is aligned with and close to the side wall of the lid. And then place the lid on the camera with this metal tongue going into the slot. Make sure you place it right here. And that's it. Now all we have to do is put all the screws back in. I'm going to put the side screws in first, and that's going to help hold things together. Let's get the cocking lever on first so that we can close the lens. Make sure it works. Cock the shutter, close the lens. Now we can put these screws back in place, and we have And we have this piece that has the flat side on it. And I found that I can put this in place with my fingers alone. There's the hole for the screw. That faces up. The pin faces down. And then the flat side is going to face the flat spring. And you just kind of want to hook it in there over that flat spring. Twisty, twisty. And we're in. Now we rotate that 1/4 turn up. Follow the arrow, 1/4 turn. There. Now let's put the washer. There we go. The lever. The screw. Remember, we use the screw that doesn't have the shoulder on it. Get everything finger tight. We're going to put this one in. Remember, this one is the screw with the shoulder. Right there. And get it finger tight. Let's make sure everything works. Now let's tighten these 3 up. The service manual says to put a little thread locker on them, and I will when I'm really happy that I've got this camera perfectly fixed. It has a couple other issues, so until then, I'm not going to put the thread locker on, but a little bit of blue Loctite would be appropriate here because these are the only thing holding the cocking lever. Now we have this small brass washer. Goes in place. And then this screw with the 2 holes in it goes right through the brass washer. There. The camera is assembled. Let's get our spanner and tighten things up. Not too tight. Let's snug these up. And that's it. We have a camera with accurate low shutter speeds. If you've got one of these fun little cameras and it has a little bit of an issue with the slow shutter speeds, go ahead, open it up, put a little bit of naphtha in the right spot, give the shutter a little bit of exercise, and you'll bring it back to life. That's all I got for you today. Thank you for watching. Now go out and shoot a roll.